Welcome to Silent Chronicler. Tonight's Calm Chronicle follows the quiet descent of a man who once held federal clearance, and now holds only silence. You were an FBI agent. You knew things that never made the news. You followed trails others couldn't see. But something changed. And tonight, you wake up in a roadside motel. Just you. A folder they never told you to return, and the kind of truth that no one wants written down. If you're staying with me tonight, leave a like and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from, and what time it is where your night begins. Let's walk through what's left, together. It feels like dust settling in the corners of a mind too full of unfinished sentences. Not loud, not sharp, just always present, always hovering. It feels like silence that isn't peace, but memory that no longer has a shape. You wake each day with the weight not of regret, but of repetition. The slow erosion of purpose. Not because anything shattered, but because everything slowly, imperceptibly shifted off center. The mornings aren't marked by alarm clocks or decisions. They arrive the way a fog rolls in, silently, evenly, without edge. You don't wake with urgency. You wake because sleep no longer holds you. It lets you go without resistance, as if knowing it no longer serves you. You lie there, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours, and time doesn't argue with you. The ticking clock is soft, distant, like the sound of breath through a cracked window. The light that seeps through motel blinds is always gray, always tired. It doesn't warm the room, it just tells you that the sky still exists, and even that is not certain. You sit up slowly. Not from pain, but because there is no reason to move quickly. Movement, like conversation, has become something rationed, reserved. It's not that you can't. It's that you've learned how little most things require motion, or sound. You move through the room the way smoke moves through a cold room, with no destination. Your hand reaches for the same chipped mug every morning, not out of habit, but because nothing else asks for your attention. The coffee brews with a dull whir, a sound that lives somewhere between a sigh and a breath. It fills the air with a smell that doesn't comfort, but grounds. Bitter, burnt, honest. You don't rush the first sip, you never do. That first taste is your anchor, not because it tastes good, but because it confirms your mouth still works, your throat still remembers how to receive. The bitterness tells you you're still a person, still shaped like one, even if the world no longer presses you into form. The room is always quiet, but never still. There's the hum of the refrigerator, the slow pulse of the heater, the occasional creak of the building settling under its own memory. It reminds you of field offices, of waiting rooms, of safe houses, rooms designed not to be lived in, only survived. You live in a mind full of maps, maps with names that don't appear on any GPS, coordinates tied to things no one ever wrote down. And you carry them like phantom limbs, not painful, but always felt. You no longer believe in clarity. You believe in texture, in the difference between one kind of silence and another, in the sound a motel sink makes before the water clears, in the way rain hits gravel versus asphalt. And every day you wonder, not if someone is coming for you, but if someone already has, and you didn't notice. Not because they failed, but because you've been too deep inside your own silence to tell. And you live here now, in the space between. Then the hours pass not like sand through a glass, not like seconds through a clock, but like breath held too long. Slow, pressurized, aching in the chest before it even begins to move. You don't check the time. You listen to it. It lives in the corners. The click of the fridge as it shifts between cycles. The hum of the ceiling fan overhead even when it's turned off. The faint whine of something electric in the walls. Maybe wiring, maybe memory. You move through this silence the way divers move through deep water, cautiously, deliberately, knowing that sudden motion brings collapse. Everything is muted, even your thoughts. They no longer come as words but as waves, impressions, weights, images that rise and fall without your control. A hallway in Langley, a door you never opened, The coffee goes cold before you drink it all. That's okay. Cold coffee tells you you're still here, still choosing to remain instead of act, still suspended in a space where choice itself is a kind of resistance. You don't turn on the TV, you haven't in weeks. What they say doesn't matter anymore. Not after what you've read. Not after what you've held in your hands. It's not about trust, it's about weight. Some things are heavier than language, heavier than stories, and once you've carried them, there's no need to hear what others call truth. Outside, the rain moves in and out like a tide, never fully stopping, just changing shape. Mist, drizzle, steady curtain, back to mist. It taps against the window like it's trying to say something, but lacks the vocabulary. You've stopped watching the rain. You listen to it now. The rhythm of it. The silence between drops. It has become the only voice you recognize. You find yourself answering it sometimes. Not aloud, just internally. As if you and the rain share a pact. Both of you persistent, both of you falling in ways no one notices. You still shave, but only every other day. The blade feels foreign in your hand, not dangerous, just strange, like a tool from a past life. You look in the mirror as little as possible. Not out of shame, out of uncertainty. You're not sure the man in the reflection is still you, or if he's just the shape of someone left behind. His eyes don't ask questions anymore. They've already heard too many answers. At night you leave the light on. Not because you're afraid of the dark, but because darkness, true darkness, reminds you of the places they sent you. The rooms with no windows, the documents read under single bulbs, the faces you saw when the light was behind them. You don't need more of that. So the bedside lamp stays on, flickering faintly, buzzing with age, casting that warm orange shadow across the ceiling like a fire without heat. It helps. Sometimes, just before sleep, if it comes, you remember sounds, specific ones. The sound of boots in a stairwell, the click of a recorder being turned off, the way a breath catches right before someone says something they shouldn't. You remember those sounds more clearly than voices. Voices fade, sounds stay, and the ones that stayed, they changed you. There is a decision that waits for you every morning. You don't make it. You just acknowledge it. A presence. A fork in the road that never disappears. It doesn't ask, it doesn't move, it just waits. And you, in return, give it time. One more day. One more hour. One more breath. Not because you fear what's on the other side, but because you still don't know what version of yourself will be the one to take the first step. This is what it feels like. To carry the weight. To live in the echo. To wake up every morning with too many secrets and not enough silence to bury them. It is not drama. It is not horror. It is a hum. A hum that lives inside you that replaces your heartbeat when you forget to listen for it. It's the sound of a life that didn't break. It just flattened. Afternoons stretch differently when your life has slowed past motion. There's no lunch, not really. Just the act of eating something small and silent, half a sandwich, maybe, or a handful of almonds, something that doesn't crack or crunch, something that doesn't remind you of appetite because appetite is a feeling of want. And you no longer want anything. You don't crave. You maintain. And even maintenance begins to feel symbolic. Like feeding a plant you don't expect to flower, only because the ritual matters more than the result. The air in the room changes slightly around that hour. Not temperature, but weight. It becomes thicker, as if the walls are exhaling just a bit deeper, as if the ceiling sags with the years you've lived within it. The shadows shift, falling in strange shapes across the carpet, like the fragments of a dream you almost had but forgot to finish. The hum of the mini fridge takes on a different tone now. Lower, slower, and it almost sounds like it's thinking. It becomes a kind of company, more consistent than memory, more faithful than friends. You don't turn on any music. You haven't in a long time. Music brings you too close to yourself, or worse, to who you were. It reopens things. It fills the room with versions of yourself you can no longer carry. Instead, you listen to the old rhythms, the ticking of the analog clock on the wall, The soft buzz of electricity behind the switch plate, the low groan of the building when it shifts under wind and weather. These things speak quietly, without story, without purpose. And that suits you. You've become someone who trusts what doesn't ask for meaning. You think about the people you've known. Not by name, that's long gone. Names vanish first, followed by faces, then voices. What remains are impressions. A way someone stood, the shape of their silence when they didn't speak, the shadow their presence left in a briefing room. You recall how tension used to sit in your gut before a door opened. You remember how still the world felt in those microseconds when you realized you'd been given just a little too much truth. It lives in you now. Not like a wound, not like fire, like sediment. It's settled, quiet, but heavy. You carry it in your back when you walk to the window. You feel it in your knees when you rise too quickly. You taste it in the copper lining of your mouth on dry mornings. You live with it not because you chose to. You live with it because it came home with you. And there's no clearance level for what it turned you into. The motel room doesn't judge. That's what you like about it. It accepts. Its furniture doesn't move. Its colors don't change. The bedding doesn't ask for anything. You can sit in that old armchair for hours and the room doesn't shift. It just holds you. Not in comfort. Not in pain. Just in place. And time, here, doesn't pass. It leans. It drapes itself across you like a warm coat you didn't put on, but don't take off. You find yourself staring at the walls sometimes, not in thought, but in suspension. No music, no memory. Just the shape of pause. You become the pause. The light outside dims again, just barely. Like the world is unsure about slipping into dusk. You feel the moment when the shadows get heavier. When the neon from the gas station flickers on, casting red across the puddles in the lot. The rain has returned, this time in smaller drops, like hesitation. You watch it collect in the cracks of the concrete, like something trying to remember itself. And still, you do not move. Not because you can't, because you've learned the value of stillness. You've learned that secrets don't need motion. They survive in quiet, in the folds of a jacket, in the grooves of a fingerprint, in the breath between sentences no one dares to finish. You sip water. It tastes like the faucet. You stare at the door. It hasn't opened since you came through it. The decision is there again, waiting where you left it. Sitting in the corner, watching you. Not impatient, not aggressive, just present. Just waiting. You breathe in. You exhale. You continue. Evening begins not with a shift in light, but with a softening of edges. The room, the furniture, your thoughts, all begin to blur just slightly, as if the day itself is exhaling for the first time. You don't need to check the clock. You know the time by feel. By the way, the rain changes pitch on the window. By the way, the shadows stop stretching and begin to pool. You feel the hours in your skin more than you ever felt them in a schedule. That part of you, the one that lived in time and routine and structure, has dissolved into something slower. You rise from the chair, not because you have a task, but because your body asks for motion. Not exercise, just a change of weight. You move toward the dresser and open it carefully. Not out of reverence, but because every sound in this place echoes differently at night. You find a clean shirt. It still smells faintly of the drawer, of wood that was painted too many times. You put it on like you're stepping into another moment, one you didn't choose, but accept. The floor under your bare feet is cold, solid, slightly uneven. You walk to the sink again. Run the water slowly, letting it reach its full coldness before you touch it. The reflection in the mirror is softer now, bluer, and for the briefest moment you imagine that if you looked long enough, it might show you something, not about who you are, but about who you're becoming. You light the small lamp beside the bed. Its light is amber, diffused, soft, the kind of light that turns a room into a memory before your eyes even close. You don't look directly at it. You let it live in the periphery where it belongs. The television remains off. You press your palm gently against the file folder on the nightstand. You don't open it. You've stopped opening things. You've learned that some information settles more cleanly when left sealed. The hum of the world outside is different now. Distant trucks, the occasional soft honk, the constant shushing of tires over wet road, it creates a kind of music you trust. It's not trying to sell you anything, not trying to explain. It simply moves past you, like the things you've come to understand. Heavy, quiet, transient. You lay down, not to sleep, not yet, just to rest your back against something certain. The ceiling fan ticks slightly even though it's not moving. Something in the mechanics is loose, like the way your bones settle when you lie flat. You stare up, not to count, just to see. Shadows move gently above you. You think of satellite footage. The silent overhead eye that watches but never interferes. That's what you feel like now, watching yourself. From a distance, not judging, just witnessing. Your mind begins to drift. Not into memory, but into tone. You remember not people, but spaces. Not events, but temperature. You recall the way metal feels in your hands at 3 a.m. You remember the sound of paper sliding across a desk in a room full of silence. You remember sitting for hours beside a phone that never rang. You remember what it was like to be the only one in the building who knew what couldn't be said. You wonder if your fingerprints still mean anything. If the doors you once opened with clearance now open to no one. You wonder what happens to information when the people who carry it stop speaking. Not because they're gone, but because they understand that silence is stronger than testimony. You turn onto your side. The sheets make a soft sound, like wind through curtains. You press your cheek against the pillow, feel its coolness. Outside, a siren passes, not fast, not urgent, just moving, the way everything else does, on a path you don't need to know. There is no conclusion tonight, only pause, only breath, only the stillness of a room that knows your name without ever asking. You do not sleep. You drift, and the room drifts with you. And as night deepens, it doesn't darken. It thickens slowly, like honey poured into water. Every sound softens. Even the rain seems to fall more gently, its rhythm slowing to match your pulse. There's no wind, no movement in the trees beyond the highway, just stillness that feels earned, not given. You've sat through too many nights in your life, some under fluorescents, some in surveillance vans, some in bunkers or black sites, or offices where the air never moved, but this one feels different. Not heavier, just quieter. As though the world has finally grown tired of asking you questions. The light from the gas station sign seeps in through the edges of the blinds, a soft flickering pink that paints the ceiling in waves. It has no pattern. It doesn't try to be beautiful, but it is. Beautiful in the way that forgotten things often are. Soft, subtle, present, without permission. You stare at it, unfocused, and let your thoughts spread out like mist across a lake. Nothing coherent, nothing constructed, just fragments. The sound of your breath fills the room in its own way. Shallow, steady, enough. You begin to sense the decision again. It doesn't press. It doesn't call. It just sits there, like an unopened letter you left on a table days ago, knowing full well what's inside, but choosing to let it remain folded, because the moment before is always quieter than the moment after. There is no plan for tomorrow. There hasn't been for years. You wake because you wake. You eat when the silence becomes too loud. You move when your legs ask you to. But purpose, the kind you once lived by, is no longer the compass. You're adrift now, not in the chaotic sense, not flailing but suspended. Floating in a state of awareness that most people never reach because they never carry what you've carried. Sometimes you think about speaking, about telling someone, anyone, about explaining what you know. Not the details, not the names, but the shape of the knowing, the weight of it. But you don't. Because even if someone listened, they wouldn't understand. They'd nod, they'd sympathize, but they wouldn't feel it. And what's the point of releasing something if it's only going to disappear again? You close your eyes. Not to sleep, just to disappear for a moment. The sound of the rain becomes a pulse in your ears. The hum of the room becomes your atmosphere. You don't move. You don't dream. You just rest in the fold between awareness and absence, between being someone and being no one. You wonder what kind of person you'd be if none of it had happened. If you'd stayed a civilian, if you'd taken that teaching job. If you'd never stepped into that first gray corridor where the silence told you more than words ever could. But then you breathe, and that breath carries the weight of everything that did happen, and you accept it. You hear a truck pass in the distance. Its tires hiss on the wet road. Its engine fades like an old song. You imagine its driver, alone, like you, watching the road unfold 1 foot at a time, listening to the world hum around him the same way you do. You send him a silent thought. Safe passage. Nothing more. Just that. And the moment drifts on. And you drift with it. It becomes harder to tell when the night ends and the next day begins. Not because of the darkness, but because of how still the transition is. There's no ceremony, no break in the hush that surrounds you. Just a gradual softening of one silence into another. You've lived in so many forms of quiet. The tense silence of interrogation rooms, the heavy quiet of surveillance offices, the strange buzz of underground halls where truth was dissected and buried again. But this quiet is different. It doesn't expect. It doesn't listen. It simply is. You shift slightly on the mattress, careful not to disturb the way the blanket lays across your body like a second skin. You've come to find a strange comfort in these small, immovable rooms. There's no decoration to distract you. No reminders. Just blank walls and objects with no opinion. A fridge, a lamp, a chair that creaks in the same place every time. These things don't judge you. They don't ask you to be whole. They simply exist alongside you as mute witnesses to the kind of existence that can't be explained in words. When the morning light finally pushes through the blinds, it's pale, reluctant, or yes, a dull silver that doesn't brighten the room so much as give it shape. It falls across the floor, not in beams, but in a soft gradient, just enough to see where the carpet ends and the bathroom tile begins. You sit up slowly as you always do. There's no rush. There never is. Your body aches in all the familiar places. Not pain, exactly. Just history. Just residue. You run water over your face again. Feel the cold of it. Not shocking, grounding. You keep the motion slow, deliberate. You're not in a hurry to become anyone this morning. You never are. Your eyes in the mirror look the same. Shadowed, unreadable. They no longer carry questions. They've long since learned that answers only lead to more weight. You dry your face, not briskly but gently, as if tending to something fragile. Something cracked, but still here. The coffee ritual follows. Exact, quiet, unchanged. The bag of grounds is nearly empty. You'll need more soon, or maybe you won't. You're not sure yet. The machine clicks into life, spitting steam and breath into the room, becoming the loudest thing you've heard in hours. You welcome it. It's one of the only noises you trust. Honest, mechanical, without memory. The smell fills the room slowly, coating everything in that bitter, grounding scent. You drink it slowly as the sky outside shifts from silver to gray. Not brighter, just more awake. You sit at the table, not to work, not to think, just to be. Your hand rests near the folder again. You still don't open it. You don't need to. Its contents are already etched into you, stitched between ribs coiled in the back of your throat. Everything inside it hums when the world gets too quiet. You think again about the decision. The one that waits, always waits, but never speaks. It feels closer today. Not louder. Just more certain. Like a door that's already unlocked, only waiting to be pushed open. You don't fear it. You never did. You only delay it. Because once it's open, once it's taken, There's no coming back to this quiet, this stillness, this almost. There's something sacred about the liminal, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. It doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't need you to hurry. It lets you linger. You find that comforting. The world beyond this room will ask questions, will demand explanations, will expect you to know who you are. But here, in this tiny rectangle of light and breath and hum, you don't have to answer. You only have to breathe. You lean back in the chair. Let the coffee cool in your hand. Let the silence expand. You let the world turn without you. You step outside not because you have somewhere to go, but because your body asked to be in the air, to feel something beyond drywall and stillness. The door creaks behind you, softly like it remembers all the other exits it's seen. The parking lot smells of wet pavement and rusted metal. The rain has stopped, but the world is still damp, as if it hasn't yet decided whether to dry or to fall again. You inhale deeply. The air here has a kind of heaviness to it, not polluted, not clean, just used. The kind of air that's held too many words, too many goodbyes, and too much waiting. You walk slowly along the edge of the lot, your boots making small sounds in the gravel. There are no other footsteps, just yours, and they don't echo. The air is too thick for that. The sound is swallowed immediately, absorbed by the world the way memory is absorbed by time, not erased, just faded. The neon vacancy sign hums behind you. You don't look back. You never do. There's a field just beyond the last row of rooms. Empty. Uncut. Grass bending gently in the breeze. You step toward it, not caring that your boots will soak through. It feels right. This softness under your feet. This openness that asks nothing from you. No questions. No proof. You walk into it like you're walking into silence itself, and it receives you. The horizon here is low and flat. You can see for miles, but nothing moves. No birds, no cars, no signs of life, except the dull lines of utility poles fading into the haze. You stand there for a while, arms at your sides, not thinking, not listening, not observing, just present. You don't feel alone. You don't feel seen. You feel allowed. And that is a rare feeling. You remember being watched, constantly. Surveillance is lifestyle. Knowing where the eyes were and where they weren't. Learning how to breathe around cameras. Learning how to disappear even in the middle of a conversation. That kind of life leaves marks. Not scars, not stories, just impressions. Subtle changes in how you hold your jaw. How long you let silence stretch. How you avoid saying your own name unless absolutely necessary. You reach the far edge of the field and stop. There's no fence. No border. Just the idea that it ends here. You respect that. You stand still, let your eyes fall closed. The wind moves through your coat, around your ears, across your shoulders. It touches you like a memory you forgot to carry. Soft, distant, real. You think again of the decision. Not dramatically. Not as climax, just as fact. It's waiting. It always is. But in this moment, in this softness, you let it rest. You let it stay silent. You don't need it yet. You turn back slowly. The motel is small in the distance, low to the ground, unremarkable, blending into the road like it was built to disappear. You walk toward it, the way you walked away from it, not with purpose, but with presence. Each step carries something invisible, not weight, not burden, just presence. You've learned how to walk without sound. Now you've learned how to walk without expectation. The clouds above shift again, heavier now. You smell the rain before it falls, metallic, green, like a memory of weather. By the time you reach the door, the first drop touches your skin. It doesn't startle you. It lands like punctuation at the end of a sentence you've been writing all day. You step back inside. The room is exactly as you left it. The air warmer, the light softer. You take off your coat. Hang it carefully. The rain begins again, slow, steady. You sit down, exhale, and let the silence rise once more around you. Night doesn't fall here so much as it arrives. Quiet, slow, familiar. You notice it not in the sky, but in the room itself. The walls lose their sharpness. Corners become suggestion. Light settles into a dull amber that doesn't fight the dark, just shares space with it. The rain outside continues its steady, patient descent. Not loud enough to distract, not faint enough to disappear. Just there. Always there, like breath. You sit by the table again, palms wrapped around a fresh mug of coffee that you didn't really want but made anyway. The motion is what mattered, the rhythm of it, the soft rattle of the spoon, the hiss of hot water hitting ceramic. Ritual over purpose. You sip it slowly. It tastes like it always does. Burnt. Honest. Bitter. In a way that feels earned. The folder is still there. You touch it with the edge of your fingers. You don't open it. You no longer need to. You've memorized the texture, the weight, the way the top sheet curls slightly at the corner. You could draw the first page from memory. Not just the text, the exact way the ink fades at the margin. The smudge near the date, the ghost of a fingerprint that isn't yours. You've stared at it so long, it feels less like a document and more like a wound. You lean back, close your eyes, listen. The room hums with soft machinery. The refrigerator clicks. The clock ticks. The lamp buzzes faintly. It's a chorus of aging electronics. A lullaby written in failing circuits and slow time. The kind of sound that doesn't fill space but holds it together. You've grown used to it. You find it reassuring. There's a memory trying to surface. You let it. You don't pull on it. You don't resist. It comes in fragments. A stairwell. A hallway. A woman's voice, sharp with urgency. A file passed across a table with shaking hands. You don't remember the words, just the way her fingers trembled, just the silence after she left. That silence stayed longer than anything else. You open your eyes. The room is still here, still yours, in the way things are yours when no one else wants them. You look at the ceiling, trace the faint cracks like they're constellations. They don't lead anywhere, that's fine. Not everything has to. You rise. The bed calls, but not for sleep. For stillness. You lie down slowly, like slipping into a pool. One muscle at a time. The mattress gives a little. The sheets are cool. Unchanged. The sound of rain against the window is steadier now. Like a drum keeping time in a dream you haven't had yet. You stare at the ceiling again. But this time you see less. You feel more. The air, the hum, the softness of your breath. You don't think about tomorrow. There is no tomorrow here. There is only this. This long, slow, quiet unraveling. This drifting without destination. This being. Your eyes close, not tightly. Just enough. You're not waiting for sleep. You're allowing it. Inviting it like an old friend who no longer needs to knock. And in that soft descent, that final exhale, you hear the room speak back to you. Not in words, but in warmth. It tells you, you have carried enough. You may put it down now. You may rest. The minutes stretch. They begin to dissolve the way ink bleeds through water, slowly, without urgency, without form. Time no longer behaves like it does outside this place. There is no past tugging at your sleeve. No future waiting around a corner. Just the now. This thick, warm, uninterrupted now, where nothing is demanded of you except to remain. And even that feels optional. You are not asleep. But you're not awake either. You are somewhere beneath wakefulness, in a depth where thought no longer arrives as language. It arrives as texture, as weight, as a quiet knowing that lives not in the mind but in the skin, in the lungs, in the way your heartbeat softens without fading. Outside, the rain takes a new rhythm, no longer constant, but broken into irregular patterns. A heavier drop now and then. A pause. Then another. Like fingers tapping on the edge of a long-forgotten piano. You listen. You've always listened. Listening has become the one thing you trust above all else. You trust the weight of silence. You trust the space between sounds. That's where the truth always lived, wasn't it? Not in what was said, but in what hovered just after. You begin to think not of events, not of facts, but of moments, still frames. The way someone once passed you a pen without meeting your eyes. The smell of gun oil in a room that should have smelled like nothing. The click of a door locking behind you when you knew it shouldn't have. None of these memories scream. They don't even whisper. They just remain. You shift in bed, slowly. The mattress sighs beneath you. Your body feels different now. Looser. Further away. Like it has started to forget its own density. You welcome that. You no longer want to be solid. You want to be air. Drift. Weightless. Like a thought no one finishes, but everyone remembers. The lamp still glows beside you. You leave it on. You always do. It casts soft orange light that touches the edges of the file folders on the table, the lip of the chair, the worn soles of your boots near the door. The room is painted in a kind of half-light, enough to see by, not enough to wake the mind. It is perfect. You wonder briefly if someone will find you here one day. If they'll open the door and pause. If they'll understand what they see. Not in the details, not in the items, not in the files, but in the atmosphere, in the stillness, in the way the dust rests undisturbed on the windowsill. You hope they will. You hope they won't speak. You hope they'll just stand there, take one breath, and know something was held here. Something was carried, and then finally put down. The hum of the room is almost imperceptible now. Not because it's gone, but because it has become part of you. You can't separate it anymore. The sound of the refrigerator, the soft tick of the clock, the tap of rain on the glass, these are not outside noises. They are your inner music, your lullaby. And the decision, still there, still waiting. But tonight, it doesn't ask anything of you. Tonight, it lets you rest. Because the secrets you've kept no longer feel like burdens. They feel like stones at the bottom of a river, worn smooth by silence. You inhale slowly. You exhale. The light hums. The bed holds you. The night listens. And finally, you sleep. Sleep doesn't come like a curtain. It comes like fog, slow, weightless, inevitable. It winds its way through the spaces behind your eyes, down your spine, into the hollow places thought has left behind. You do not chase it. You do not resist. You let it find you. And when it does not ask your name. It only asks that you stop trying. The bed beneath you is no longer something you lie upon. It is something you dissolve into. The lines between your body and the fabric have blurred, softened, disappeared. The air feels warmer now, not in temperature, but in tone, as if the very atmosphere has decided to hold you gently, without comment, without demand. Outside, the world continues in its own rhythm, headlights tracing long arcs through the night, truck tires whispering against wet roads, a vending machine humming somewhere in the distance. These sounds don't intrude, they rock you. They remind you that life goes on and that you are allowed, just for now, to let it do so without you. There is no dream, no scene, no story, only space, only softness, only the long, slow melting of everything rigid. The case files, the field work, the codes and corridors and conversations, they are far now, floating behind a veil of breath. Still there, but no longer sharp. They've faded into texture, into background, into something that can rest where it is. Your heart beats slower now, each thump farther apart, each pause more deliberate, not because it's failing, but because it finally has permission to slow. You have granted yourself that, not through words, not through decision, just through surrender. And the decision, the one that waited in the corner, it is gone now. Not because it resolved. Because it was never urgent. Only you thought it was. Only the weight made it seem louder than it ever was. But the room knew. The rain knew. The silence knew. That what you needed was not action, not answers, only release. And still the night holds. even with sleep softening the edge of each thought. There is a presence beneath it all, a hush so complete, so steady, that it becomes part of your breathing. You are not dreaming, but you are drifting, somewhere between memory and quiet, between being and release. The room fades around you, but not in darkness, in stillness, the kind that lives in places untouched for years, the kind that wraps around objects and makes them feel sacred, even if they were once ordinary. The mattress holds your shape like it was carved for it. The blanket rests across your body like it belongs there. There is no discomfort, no sensation asking for attention. Only calm. Even your heartbeat no longer feels like a beat. It feels like a rhythm shared with the night itself. A slow echo of something older than words. Thoughts move through your mind like shadows in water. Not sharp, not detailed, just outlines. Gentle shapes that pass by without name. A city skyline through rain. A desk light flickering. The scent of paper and old carpet. The weight of a key card in your palm. All of them pass without sound, like they know this isn't their time, like they're just visiting. You become aware of your breath again. Not because it's strained, but of course because it's perfect, slow, full, deep. It expands through your chest and settles with purpose, not urgency. Like the way waves reach a shore that's already waiting for them. Outside, the rain continues, but it's fainter now. It moves across the world like a hand, smoothing a wrinkle in a sheet. You know that beyond the window the world is still turning. The highway still hums. The sky still holds its shape. But none of it asks for you tonight. It continues. And for once you are allowed to stay still while it does. You do not miss the bureau. You do not long for the briefings, the weight of a badge, the hum of classified printers in quiet rooms. You do not miss the sense of direction. Because direction always came with cost, and tonight, for the first time in too long, there is no cost, no mask, no expectation, just breathe, just stillness, just the soft knowledge that for now being here is enough. You think for a moment of everything you know, everything they asked you to carry, everything you weren't supposed to question. But the thoughts are softer now. They no longer sit with sharp edges, they simply float. Knowledge becomes atmosphere. Secrets become silence. And that silence is what cradles you now. The bed shifts as your body sinks deeper. Not in weight, in surrender. You are not trying to hold on to anything anymore. Not identity. Not memory. Not even rest. You've let go without knowing. You've fallen without falling. And somewhere in the far edge of your awareness, you feel something. Not a presence, not a figure, just a vastness, a space that finally allows you to be small, that tells you you don't need to hold it all. Not tonight, not anymore. You let the blanket breathe for you. You let the walls protect you. You let the night wrap around your shoulders like an old coat you thought you'd lost. And in that wrapping, in that long, slow, unspoken lull, you finally truly disappear into peace. And it cradles you. You, the man who once carried a badge not for pride, not for power, but because someone had to step into the rooms no one else would enter. Someone had to look into the things that could never be spoken aloud. Someone had to bear the weight of the patterns, the files, the silences that trembled between words. That someone was you, a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. A title that never really left your name, even when they stopped calling, even when they reassigned your office, deactivated your clearance, and said, with practiced neutrality, that it was time for you to take indefinite leave. You were never officially dismissed. That would have left a record. You were shelved, quietly, with a handshake, a folder you weren't meant to keep, and too many thoughts that could never be shared. There was no ceremony, no medal, no end, just an after. And you've lived in that after ever since. The motel room, dim, damp, anonymous, has become your bureau now. Your new field office. The case is yourself. The evidence. Your breath. your silence, your memory. Every creak in the floorboard becomes a new lead. Every hum from the wall socket becomes another voice in the wire, but no one's listening anymore. No tapes are rolling. The bureau has moved on, and in truth, so have you. But the weight hasn't. It's still there, inside you. It takes the form of long pauses in conversation you never have. The slight delay before you answer a question no one asks. The way your eyes scan a room even when there's nothing left to find. The bureau trained that into you. Not intentionally, not maliciously, just as a function of the work. When you see too much, you don't stop seeing, even when there's nothing left to see. You learned things most people weren't meant to know. Not the dramatic things, not spies and double agents and the wild conspiracies people fantasize about. Number. The truth was simpler, colder. It was how easily a man could disappear without leaving a footprint. How entire stories could vanish from databases without anyone noticing. How facts could be buried under language so bureaucratic it became invisible. You saw how silence worked. How systems protected themselves. And once you saw that, you couldn't unsee it. And so you were given time. That's what they called it. Time. As though time would undo what you'd learned. As though time would gently press a hand over your eyes and say, that's enough. But time doesn't undo. Time only layers. And in this motel room, layered in time, you live out your final assignment. Not officially assigned, not funded, not approved, but real, quiet, yours. The file on the table may be closed, but the case remains open in your chest. You carry it each day, not actively, not by choice, but by gravity. Because the bureau never truly let you go. It just stopped calling. And yet you remain the same way dust remains in an old evidence locker, the same way an agent's name stays on a logbook long after the ID has been retired. You are not waiting for closure. You are not expecting redemption. You are resting in the knowledge that you did what no one else wanted to. And now, as the rain coats the window like breath on glass, as the light pulses from the gas station across the highway, as the motel hums in its soft decay, you lie still and let it all finally rest with you. You, the silent agent. You, the forgotten sentinel. You, the last witness to a truth too quiet to tell. And as your eyes close and your hands go still and your breath finds its final slow rhythm, the case remains unsolved, but you are complete. Even now, lying here in the dim hum of a roadside motel off the 90, long after the credentials have been shelved and the field reports have stopped needing your initials, your mind still thinks like a bureau man. It's in the way you measure a room, from the position of the bed to the angle of the mirror. It's in the way you catalog every sound in the background, even when you're supposed to be sleeping. It's in the way you leave no trace, even when no one's watching. You haven't signed an official form in months, haven't logged a code in a secure system, haven't responded to a call from HQ, but that doesn't matter. The training never really leaves. The bureau isn't something you walk away from. It's something you're absorbed into, one clearance level at a time, until there's no you left that wasn't shaped by protocol. You still remember the first time you stepped into Quantico. The sterile air, the buzz of fluorescent light, the silent looks exchanged in elevators between people who all knew things they could never say. It was exciting then, purposeful. You believed in what you were entering. You believed in law, in order, in the idea that truth could be uncovered with enough patience and classified ink. But things shifted. Not in one moment, not because of one case, but over years. Over files stamped restricted in red, over audio that was too quiet to record but too loud to forget. Over late night briefings where no one dared speak above a whisper, even off the record. They gave you clearance after clearance, trusted you, burdened you. You became the guy they sent when something was too complicated for the field teams and too fragile for the press. You saw the cracks, not just in operations, in people, in your colleagues, in yourself. You remember the day they told you to stand down. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a reprimand. It was phrased as care. Agent, you've been deep for too long. You need air. But they didn't mean breath, they meant silence. They meant disappear just for a while, so you did. And now here you are, sitting on the edge of a bed in a borrowed room with a case file that was never filed. No insignia, no badge, just the memory of a life where facts had weight and silence had a name. Even now, the dreams don't come easily. When they do, they're strange, not nightmares, just recollections, clean hallways, handshakes you should have read differently, classified footage you saw once and then never again. You wake sometimes thinking someone's called your last name in that clipped tone agents use when urgency is too dangerous to say aloud. But there's no voice, just the hum of the fridge, the rain. The bureau taught you how to hold things in, how to swallow the unspeakable, how to keep your posture even when you're collapsing inside. And now, years later, you're still doing it. Not because you're told to, but because you don't remember how to stop. It's a kind of survival, but not the heroic kind, just the kind that keeps the lights on in your head, keeps the file closed, keeps the breath steady. And tonight, as the room settles and the rain begins to wash against the window once more, you lie back and let yourself remember what it was like to believe that the bureau could fix things. That justice was something you could trace through coordinates and timestamps. That the people you worked with were soldiers of something higher. And maybe they were. Maybe you still are. But now you serve something quieter. A watchful silence. A still kind of truth. You are no longer on the record. But you are still the record. They never taught you what to do after the last mission. The Bureau prepared you for protocol breaches, for high-value targets, for black bag operations on foreign soil, but not for the quiet that followed. Not for the way your body would continue scanning every room long after the threat was gone, or the way your hands would still grip the corners of unmarked folders as if they might vanish if you let go. There were operations you can't speak of. Not because you signed a non-disclosure agreement, that was assumed, but because the language itself doesn't hold what you saw. You remember names that no longer exist, places that were scrubbed from maps before they were even drawn, conversations that took place in rooms where clocks didn't tick. You didn't take notes. You weren't allowed. You didn't ask for confirmation. That wasn't the point. You were tasked with quiet containment. That was the phrase they used. It sounded clinical. It sounded controlled. But what it really meant was this. See what you're not supposed to. Feel more than you're allowed to. And never, ever ask where the silence is coming from. You did it, over and over, because it was the job. Because someone had to hold the pieces. There was one case. You still remember the code name? Operation Longwake. It started with a phone call intercepted in Vermont. Ended somewhere outside Denver. You saw things in that report you weren't meant to interpret, just archive. They brought it to you because you had the clearance. They left you with it because no one else wanted the weight. What you learned that day changed something. Not just in you, in how you understood the system. The FBI wasn't malicious, it wasn't evil, but it was hollow in the center. Empty of warmth, built for process, not for people. The higher you went, the more you felt it. Layers of language designed to protect not the truth, but the structure itself. You told one person, a colleague from your academy class, someone who'd worked alongside you through 4 divisions, 2 temporary task forces, and a 6-month joint project with DHS. You said 3 sentences. He looked at you for a long time, then said, "You need to take some time." That was it. You were reassigned within the week, first to archive review, then to internal review, then to nothing at all. They didn't fire you. They didn't push you. They just stopped giving you missions. And when a man like you stops moving, the silence gets louder. Now you wake up in rooms like this one. Watch your breath fog the glass. Wonder how many other agents were shelved like you. Not broken, not betrayed, just paused. Left to carry secrets without outlet, without context, without an exit strategy. And yet, you don't hate them. Not the Bureau, not the people, not even the decisions. Because in your chest, below all that weight is the soft, steady pulse of knowing that someone had to see it. Someone had to remember. And you do. You remember the coordinates. You remember the pattern in the noise. You remember the voice that didn't match the name in the dossier. You remember how truth looks when it tries not to be seen. And tonight, here, in this motel bed with the world humming outside and your breath soft against the pillow, you know this. You didn't fail, you didn't leave. You were sent here into quiet exile because they knew you would hold the silence better than anyone else could. You, the last link in the chain. You, the trusted listener. You, the unofficial custodian of truths too fragile for the official record. And that is enough for now. You've become an archive in human form, not categorized, not alphabetized, just full. A walking ledger of observations, locations, redacted truths, and quiet realizations too delicate to say aloud. Your spine holds dates. Your fingertips remember textures of paper that were never meant to be printed. Your breath has the cadence of dictation that no one will ever transcribe. You are the file now, the last unsealed folder. In Quantico, they trained you to spot patterns in chaos, to listen beyond what was said, to see the movement in the background while everyone else looked at the scene. You were good at it. So good they started bringing you cases that didn't have clean edges. The ones no one wanted to sign off on. The ones where need to know meant no one really wanted to. There was a point where your mind stopped distinguishing between official and personal memory. The Bureau asked so much of you, your time, your health, your nights, your trust, that the line blurred. It didn't matter if it was a classified case or a personal observation. Everything fed into the same mental stream. Everything mattered equally. And that, maybe more than anything else, is what exhausted you. You began dreaming in transcripts. You heard your own thoughts in the tone of after-action reports. You couldn't feel without analyzing. Couldn't relax without scanning exits. You sat in cafes with your back to the wall, even in cities you had no history in. And now, years later, you still do. It's not fear. It's muscle memory. And muscle memory is the Bureau's most lasting gift. You've become fluent in absence. You understand what silence means when it shifts suddenly. You know how to hear someone's intention in the way they pause before saying your name. You know how to disappear, not by leaving, but by fading, just enough that you're still there, but no longer accessible. That's what you've done. In this motel, you didn't run, you faded. One room, one coffee cup, one folder that no one will ever request. And yet, you're still serving. This too is part of the work. This preservation, this containment. You are the Bureau's ghost limb, still twitching with duty even after detachment. Sometimes you wonder if someone is keeping tabs on you. Not watching. Just checking that you're still where they left you. You like the idea. It means you haven't vanished entirely. That somewhere, in an encrypted system, there's a line that still bears your name. That somewhere, someone sees your presence and thinks, still quiet, still holding. But most days, you suspect they've forgotten. And that's fine too. Because forgetting is a kind of safety. And being forgotten is the cleanest form of protection. The Bureau was always built on what stayed hidden. You, now, are part of that structure. Not as a failure, not as a loss, but as a necessary silence. A still point in a system that's always shifting. And tonight, as the clock ticks softly on the wall, as the light from the window slants across your closed eyes, as your chest rises and falls without resistance, you remain quiet, unseen, complete. Your breath becomes the final field report, not written, not filed, but lived. Each inhale a record, each exhale a redaction. You've given up the paperwork, the briefings, the coded memos, Chronicles, and replaced them with quiet, slow minutes drawn out like declassified moments across a dusk that never ends. You don't keep logs anymore, but your body remembers. Your mind tracks things no one else will ever know existed. There's a strange dignity in that. You are no longer Special Agent anything. There is no title stitched to your name. But the work, the weight of the Bureau, remains etched into the lines around your eyes, into the way you sip your coffee without distraction, into the way you listen to the world like it's always trying to tell you something under its breath. Because in your line of work, the true line, the deep line, nothing was ever loud. It was always soft. A slip of paper that shouldn't have been there. A change in tone during a phone call. A second set of footprints where there should have been one. The big cases were noisy, but the truth was always quiet. Always coated in silence. And that silence, it became home. Now the motel has inherited that quiet. It has absorbed it into its faded curtains, into its aging wallpaper, into the hum of the bathroom fan that never fully turns off. You have become part of the room, part of its atmosphere. Not a guest, not a tenant. Something quieter, something more essential. The bureau doesn't call. They won't. They know better. You were part of something they'd rather not remember. Not out of shame, but out of necessity. There are some files that don't close with signatures. Some cases that end not with justice, but with containment. You are a living form of that containment. Walking, breathing, non-disclosure. They never taught you how to live like this. They trained you to fight, to analyze, to protect. But they never trained you to hold still. Never trained you to fall silent and stay there. Never trained you to be the room where the last whispers are kept. And yet, here you are and you're good at it. Not out of pride, out of understanding. Because someone had to be the end of the line. Someone had to hold the final memory. And that someone is you. You exhale again. Let the breath fill the room. Let the weight settle. No questions remain. No calls come. The bureau continues. And so do you. Still. Alone. And exactly where you need to be. You lie there. Still. Unmoving. Not from fatigue, but from understanding. The kind that settles in the bones like old protocol. Memorized not in thought, but in breath. The bureau no longer calls. The mission no longer runs, and yet every cell in your body holds position. As if the next breath might still be classified. As if the next blink might still matter. The rain keeps falling. The world keeps turning. And you, the agent turned vessel, turned archive, turned hush in human form, remain in place. Not absent, not vanished, just finished. The badge was never the weight. The knowing was. The silence wasn't the punishment, it was the role. You were never the story. You were the lockbox it lived in. The last field report written in pulse and posture and the stillness of a man who kept everything that shouldn't be said. And now, you exhale not as a goodbye, but as an unmarked file gently closing. No headline, no last mission, no final entry, only breath, only stillness. Only the echo of work that asked too much and left you exactly where you are. Quiet, alive, and finally allowed to disappear without question. Not because you're gone, but because you've become the silence itself. Good night, sleep deep, the bureau is silent, and so are you. Good night.